of prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Ronald. This is Romogi coming to lead you through the word of prayer. Let's humble and pray. Thank you, Father, King of glory. We thank you for the gift of new life and the day that you have blessed us with. We thank you for the section that is going to take place. May it be led by you. For the kingdom, the glory, and the power are yours. Amen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the word of prayer. We are streaming from Lugogo, and I'm going to first mute everyone that is on the call, such that we don't have that background noise. I'm muting everyone, and then we shall allow you to talk. In a special way, I want to welcome everyone that has joined this call. Thank you so much for joining. My name is Kaziba Steven, and I'm here at Lugogo. You can look at the background. That's where we are. Thank you so much for joining this session. In today's session, we are looking at our biology facilitation, and I want to welcome Teacher Arthur. Thank you so much for joining. And Teacher Eva, thank you so much for joining. And all the schools that are joining in from the different parts of the country, you are most welcome. And all the students that are joining in from your different homes and districts, you are most welcome for this session. In today's session, we are going to deal with very many things. So kindly, in case you have any questions, we shall use the chat, but also I know the facilitator will give us time in order for us to be able to ask. So allow me now to first invite Mr. Ronald Dungu, the Principal Education Officer, to say something, and then we start off with the session. Mr. Ronald, you are most welcome.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, ladies and gentlemen, we want to welcome you to this session. And today it's a special session where we are launching the digital agenda for the Ministry of Education and Sports. And this is the agenda that is going to guide us in the implementation of technology within the education sector. So I want to welcome the teachers who are going to deliver our lesson today, and watching happening on site. We'll have students from Nabisunsa Girls and Chambogo College joining us. They have delayed to arrive, but we'd like to welcome everybody who is coming from across the country. And Teacher Pugonza and Teacher Eva, thank you for accepting to offer this service. So I want to wish everybody a good day, and please let us continue working together to close the learning gap. Thank you, Mr. Kaziva, and your team for making this possible. Over to you, Mr. Kaziva.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ronald, for those remarks. I wanted to, Teacher Eva, you said before Teacher Arthur comes in, to just show us.
Yes, Mr. Kaziva, we shall be showing the materials as we proceed.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yes. Teacher Arthur, you are most welcome, and kindly take over.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Kaziva. I want to say a good morning to all the participants. My name is Teacher Arthur Pugonza, and I'm going to be taking you through this session together with the Teacher Eva. So we are going to take it in a way that we shall be having a guiding item which is going to guide us in this whole session that we're going to go through. And we have selected our item to be in the area of biology practicals. So that's what we are going to look at, because we've realized that most schools in Uganda, they have a challenge of delivering practicals for very many reasons. Maybe accessibility to the labs, or maybe availability of items that are required, or maybe not really knowing what constitutes of practicals. When you talk of practicals, what does it comprise of? So we thought that today we can exhaustively go through the practicals. We know where do they come from, how do items look like, which kind of resources or which kind of information I need to go through in order to be able to respond to these items. And Teacher Eve, I hope you're ready. Okay. So I'm going to display our guiding item of today.
Yes,
So
I am, Teacher Arthur.
Okay. I'm going to switch to share my screen. Okay, just a moment. Let me share the screen. So I hope my screen is coming through.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay. Now, this is about biology, and specifically, remember the reason why you're going through biology in school is to be able to solve problems that are related to the area of biology. And these problems, we are always exposed to them in everything that we do in life. There is no way you can run away from biology, because it will always catch up with you. And some of these things, surprisingly, we're not even sure, or we're not even aware that they can be solved through simple practicals or simple investigative experiments. So one of the areas in biology, biology assessment, is the area of being able to plan and design your own investigations so that you are able to solve a problem at hand. So if you're faced with any problem in life, or you find that there's a problem that you're faced with, what do you have to go through to be able to have that problem solved? And that is a whole skill that is assessed in this new curriculum. Therefore, it means for every problem, you have to identify the problem itself, then you'll be able to design an experiment that you have to perform to have that problem solved. Now, for instance, when we look at this item here that we are having, it is a problem. Someone has a problem and they need this problem solved. So what do we have? They are saying that Saif Industries Limited in Uganda wants to produce a new snack made from cassava. So they want to produce a new snack made from cassava. They at first make the cassava in the snack sweet and ready to be absorbed into the body. Then they're saying that you have been provided with a solution called the Q. And they're saying that this solution contains an enzyme that can break down the polysaccharides in cassava, making it sweet and easy to absorb. However, Q works best under ideal conditions, which must be monitored during processing stages. So this is the scenario. Or maybe we are assuming have been given a job in the food industries, and they are saying, please, John, or please, Mary, we know that you went through school, you learned biology, please help us. We have hired you as an expert. Help us. We have cassava, want to produce a snack, but this snack must be a sweet one. But this snack must be a sweet one. Then they're relying on you because they know you have learned biology. So they're relying on you. So what do you have to do in this case? So it means that you have to carry out an investigation and find out if I have my cassava and the task before me is that I want to make this cassava sweet, and I know there are enzymes which can help me do that. But of course, at the background information, or I have some background information, I know that Q works best under ideal conditions. So it means that whichever design I'm coming up with, I need to monitor the ideal conditions under which this process that I want to do, under which this test that I want to do of converting cassava into something sweet that you will have to go through. So what do I do? Before that, there are some questions that you have to be having at the back of your mind. We normally call these ones inquiry questions. You ask yourself questions, then after asking yourself such a question, then you have it answered. In that, by the time all your questions are answered, then you have a complete idea of how you're going to design your experiment, execute it, and then at the end of the day, make appropriate recommendations. But before you go into that, always be aware or know that these items have some background biology. And that is the background biology that you have to first answer yourselves. So Teacher Eva is now going to take us through what are some of those investigative questions that you should be having at the back of your mind, and how relevant are they in helping you eventually understand the task before you, and then be able to design an appropriate experiment or an appropriate investigation to have the task executed. Now, kindly Teacher Eva, you can take us through that session. Guide the learners. What are the kind of items, what are the kind of questions that they should be having at the back of their mind, and what is it necessary? Why are those questions? What are those questions, and how are they helping us in coming up with an appropriate experimental design? Teacher Eva, over to you.
Thank you very much, Teacher Arthur. Dear students, you're most welcome. My name is Eva Kabayonga Kajimu, and as already said, I'm a teacher of biology and chemistry. So today we are the scientific investigators. They have given us this problem. Someone has cassava, but would like to make the cassava sweet. So we check our biology. Where did we study some of these things? How can we change cassava into something which is sweet? That's the first thing you should ask yourself as you start planning for the scientific investigation. So we are going to have a question and answer session. I ask questions. Either you raise your hands and give suggestions, or you type in the chat. We shall, together with Teacher Arthur, we shall be getting your answers. The first one I want us to ask ourselves: how do you think you can design an experiment to find out the best pH for that enzyme Q? Let us think about this. We have studied biology in class, I think you studied polysaccharides in the topic of nutrient compounds. So how can we design such an experiment? What can we do so that we find out the best pH? I just need a summary. So yes, students, you either raise your hand or something like that. Yes, I think you raise and talk. You're waiting for those who are willing to attempt. We want to make sure you have understood before we go into the practical bit of this exercise.
Yes, so we have a task before us, and the teacher Eva is posing to us a question. How would you design an experiment to find the best pH for an enzyme? In other words, if you're to design, because from this item here, the experiment that you're seeing in the screen being shared, it is clear the task wants us to design. Let me reshare.
You're shared. It's shared. The scenario is there.
Okay. Now, the task is clear that carry out an investigation to determine the ideal pH for enzyme Q. Now we are asking, how best can one design an experiment or an experiment that requires determination of pH given enzymes? It may not be enzyme Q, but it can be any enzyme. How best can we do it? Over to you, students.
Teacher Arthur, some answers have come in through the chat.
Okay. So in the chat, it's saying we put the enzyme Q with the solution T in two different alkaline acidic conditions at an optimum temperature for enzyme activity. That is a very good response. That we shall put the enzyme together with our cassava solution into two different conditions, that is alkaline and then acidic at optimum temperature for activity. Then also another response is saying use of alkaline and acidic solutions. So we are using alkaline and acidic solutions in a water bath at a temperature. This one is now not very clear. So they are saying we use alkaline and acidic solutions in a water bath of the same temperature to test the reaction, the enzyme. Maybe Karen, I can ask, how would you test the reaction of the enzyme? Still, we need also an answer to that. How would you test the reaction of the enzyme? Then one is saying that you prepare solutions. Now this one is giving us detailed procedures. Now, for now, let us just focus on the design. How can you design it? We are not asking for the steps that you go through. We're interested in how can you design. Because before you carry out any investigation, you must be having a design in your head. What am I going to do? What is the design here? If I'm to investigate pH, effect of pH and enzyme, what comes into your mind? What is the preliminary planning that I should be having in order for me to come up with now the steps that I'm going to follow? And that should always be the first question. The design, how are you going to design that experiment? We have not reached at the level of giving the procedures now. We're now asking, how can you design any experiment that involves pH? Then I'll continue reading other responses. Rhea is saying, you add an acidic solution, neutral or alkaline, and see which is best. Yes, that is one of now the good design ideas. He's saying that I simply have three solutions: acidic solution, alkaline solution, and neutral. Then now we see of those, which one will work. That is interesting. Let me look at another response. Bishop Kulu Girls, Kumi, they are saying enzyme Q will be exposed to different pH medium. That is interesting. Say one in alkaline, one in acidic, and neutral. Monitored at the same temperature, and then followed by a test for reducing sugars. This is very interesting. I think, let me read it again. So it is coming from Bishop Local Girls. They are saying that, how would I design such an experiment? They are saying, one, I expose this enzyme because I want to investigate the effect of pH on this enzyme. So now, what do I do? Expose the enzyme to different pH medium, and they're giving us the 3 pH that they're expecting. 1 alkaline, 1 acidic, 1 neutral. Then I monitor them at the same temperature, followed by a test for reducing sugars. That's interesting. Let me look at now another response. And they're saying, okay, please saying, do we consider using neutral pH in this case? That's an interesting question. Do we consider using neutral pH in this case? Okay, maybe if I can hear from Bishop Lukor Girls, answer that question. Should we really consider using pH in this case? Bishop Lukor, please come over and defend. Why are you saying we use alkaline as well?
As if they say neutral as well. Probably they are not unmuted, I don't know. Teacher Arthur? Seems we've lost Teacher Arthur there. I want to, because we've got quite a number of questions and I see we've got some very good responses. It's clear that people know that if we are going to find out the ideal pH, ideal means the best at which the enzyme works best, that if we are going to find out the ideal pH for the enzyme, it's clear from many of your responses that we are going to get our enzyme and subject it to different pH levels. You give the enzyme different pH levels and mix it with the extract. That is what we are likely to do. The issue now coming up, many of the respondents are saying we vary the pHs, we only have acidic and alkaline. So the question here is, do we need also neutral? And what you should ask yourself, are there any enzymes which work best in neutral conditions? If there are any, then it is okay for us to suspect that even our enzyme Q probably could work best at neutral. Since there are other enzymes which work best in acidic conditions, then we could suspect it works best in acidic conditions. And also, since there are some that work best in alkaline conditions, we suspect that. So as a house, I want us to agree, therefore, we are going to design our experiment by testing the enzyme, mixing it with the extract, but we have 3 different pH levels, some acidic conditions, neutral conditions, and alkaline conditions. I would like now to proceed and ask you another question. You have said we are going to, okay, we have agreed that we are going to mix our enzyme with the cassava solution and in 3 different conditions, the acidic, neutral, and alkaline. Now the question is, when we mix, how will we know that actually the enzyme has really broken down the cassava to something sweet? How do we intend to find that out? Okay, someone is saying, teacher, I'm not understanding. With this Michael Blair. Teacher Arthur, maybe we could allow people to unmute. Okay, yes. Someone has a hand up, you can unmute and ask your question maybe before I move further.
Okay, Christopher.
Christopher, you can unmute and ask. We want to move with you.
Philemon.
What is the hypothesis of the experiment? I'm not understanding that.
Okay. Okay, now I think, okay, thank you, Philemon, for that concern. Now, okay, someone could have come in late. Now, let me make a recap for our comrades who have come late. Then so that we can now move together. Now, we are saying that, I hope my screen is coming through, the one with the item. Now, we are saying that today we are having a special session on biology. And we are going to see how best can we carry out scientific investigations in biology. And we said that for us to be able to carry out scientific investigations, you must be having a problem at hand that you have to solve. Therefore, all your design or your scientific investigation will be based on your ability to solve or to mobilize the appropriate resources, the skills, the competences, and be able to solve the problem that is at hand. On the screen, I have displayed a problem at hand that we have to solve. And this problem is that there is an industry called Saif. This Saif wants to produce a new snack, but they want to make this snack from cassava. And to them, this snack must be sweet. And they are aware that if I have to make, they are aware that if I have to make the cassava sweet, of course, I don't think that cassava is sweet anyway. There is a difference between being sweet and also there's a difference between being delicious. Something can be delicious, but not sweet. Now to them, they want to make this cassava sweet, not only delicious, but sweet. And they know that from the information or from the biology that you are taught at school, there is the topic of nutrition. The topic of nutrition, we teach you, or teachers teach you, that we have different forms of carbohydrates. We have polysaccharides, we have disaccharides, and then we have monosaccharides. Some of the features of polysaccharides is that polysaccharides are not sweet. And the examples of these polysaccharides, the examples are starch. And starch is in cassava. So we know that cassava contains starch. Now, the question is, how do I convert the polysaccharide or the starch in cassava to a product that is sweet? Now, that is the first challenge is, Now, how do I convert the cassava or the starch in the cassava to something that is sweet? The scenario again tells us that they have discovered that there is an enzyme called chew, that now this enzyme can break down the polysaccharide in the cassava to something sweet. Obviously, it must be that they can break down the polysaccharides maybe to disaccharides. Of course, we know that starch can be broken down to disaccharides, specifically to maltose. And we also know that maltose is sweet. So it means that now the task is converting the polysaccharides to sweet disaccharides. In that, their snack, instead of having the starch, which is not sweet, should be having the disaccharides, which are sweet. So they have discovered that there is an enzyme for that. And they have named this enzyme Q. They know that now, if they get this enzyme, they expose it to the cassava, then the cassava will be sweet. And if it is sweet, we now have two advantages of it. One, the cassava is sweet. And secondly, it will be easy to absorb. Well, at least that is what the scenario is telling us, that it will make the cassava sweet and easy to absorb. So now that one they know. One problem solved. They know that if I want to make my cassava sweet, I have to use this enzyme Q. So this enzyme Q converts the starch in the cassava, which is not so sweet, to a product that is sweet. One solution, one question answered, or one task responded to. Then the second, now the question is, there is also another concern. Another concern is that they have discovered that this Q, I'm reading from the scenario now, that however Q works best under ideal conditions, which must be monitored during the processing stages. Now, it is also another information they are giving us that, it means Q cannot work under any conditions. Q cannot work under any conditions. That I have to also be aware that I shouldn't just get Q, put it in cassava, hoping that it will make the cassava sweet. They are saying that, are you aware that this Q works under certain pH conditions? Works under certain pH conditions. Now, if I'm aware that it works under certain pH conditions, so it means I must monitor them. That if I want to convert my cassava to something which is sweet, I also have to be mindful of the conditions under which my enzyme works. So I have to be aware of the conditions under which my enzyme works. Because if the conditions are not met, then I'm worried. Q will not be able to make my cassava sweet. I hope that one is clear. Now, that is the background information that has been provided to us in this scenario or in this problem that we are calling it a scenario. Now, which task do you have now to respond to? You also have now to be aware of which task do we have to respond to. It is clear that saying that, now, can you carry out an investigation to determine which ideal pH enables, or under which pH will my enzyme Q be able now to convert my cassava to a sweet product? So that is where we are now. That is where we are. And we are saying that before even you start of thinking of carrying out such an investigation, before you start thinking about it, there are some things you should be having at the back of your mind. And that was our first guiding question. Now, we don't want to go direct into do this, do that, and ideally never do that. First, ask yourself some things. What is I have to do? How do I do it? These are now that we are taking you through. So these are the guiding questions that we are taking you through. And the teacher Eva posed to us a very interesting question when she asked, how would you design an experiment to find the best pH for an enzyme? And that question was responded to. Someone said, oh, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the name of the school. I think the Kumi girls. They gave us a very interesting response. They said that, oh, it is just simple. How do I design out? I have to first be aware of, first of all, what are these different pH that I'm talking about? What are they? And it is clear we have discussed that. I have to know that the pH are 3. They are 3. There is neutral, there is acidic, and then there is alkaline. So if I have these 3 pH, now how would I design such an experiment? And they were able to respond very brilliantly. And they said that, no, it is simple. Just get your enzyme, expose it to neutral pH, acidic pH, alkaline pH, and see what happens. So that was the first thing answered, that how do I do it? Just expose your enzyme to 3 different pH. In neutral, will the cassava be made sweet? In other words, will the starch be converted into a disaccharide, which is sweet? Secondly, expose it to alkaline. Will the starch in the cassava be converted to something sweet? Thirdly, expose it to acidic. Will the enzyme in the cube convert the cassava to something sweet? Now, it means that that is now what we are investigating. And if you have that at the back of your mind, then you're now starting, you know now where you're going. Because for you people to carry out an investigation, there are some queries or there are some hurdles that you have to skip. How do I do this? That is step 1. Why do I have to do it? That is step 2. How do I do it? So we are now going through those guiding statements to help us be able to design an appropriate experiment for this task that is given to us. And now the second question from teacher Eva was, what observations or measurements should you make to see if enzyme Q is working? Yeah. That is now the question that we're supposed to respond to. Now that we have known that we have to expose our enzyme to different pH. Now the question is, what observations do you expect to make? Or what observation do you expect to see? Teacher Eva, is it that way we were?
Yes, so, and luckily, thank you very much, Teacher Arthur. I believe now everyone has logged on. Just for emphasis, we have not yet reached looking for, what are those things? Looking for the hypothesis, the aim, and so on, which we need in the experiment. We are still planning in our heads. We have certain questions which we have to have answered. When I look at the chart here, Teacher Arthur, some people had answered the question number 2, and they are saying, to know whether the enzyme has worked on the cassava, we could test for reducing sugars. That is from Ryan. A number of people, even Vincent, said test for reducing sugars. That is very good. That is what we do in the laboratory. We carry out a test. The maltose, which is a disaccharide, we know from our biology that it is a reducing sugar. So the moment we test after some time of keeping the enzyme with our cassava incubated for some time at different pHs, we should be able to come back and now test to see if reducing sugars are there. Thank you all those who gave that answer. I'm very glad you're good scientists. No one said we are going to test with our tongue. We don't do that in biology, although I know it would give the sweet taste, but it's not what we do. So now I want to pose another question, and again, we shall make use of the chat. But I think this one mainly, Teacher Arthur, you brought it out very clearly in your explanation, so maybe just for emphasis, that what happens when enzyme Q breaks down the starch, or what we call the polysaccharides in the cassava. Teacher Arthur has emphasized that and told us it breaks the large polysaccharides into smaller molecules, disaccharides. And these disaccharides are sweet. That is what will make our product sweet. But for us in the lab, we are not going to put our tongues to feel for the sweetness. Instead, we know that those sweet disaccharides also happen to be reducing sugars. By the way, starch can be broken further from the maltose to even glucose. Those are small molecules, and so they can easily enter across the blood vessels in our body and be absorbed. So maybe the next question I ask, how does, no, I think most of this we have said. Maybe what we could ask from our biology, why might the pH level affect how well the enzyme Q works? Why do you think these people are thinking about the pH level? Do we know any biology about how pH affects the working of enzymes? Again, let's make use of the chart. Okay. Any answers about how the pH level could affect how well the enzyme Q works? Yes, I am seeing Jonah. Jonah, you're saying, what is Jonah saying? Jonah, you're telling us enzymes have optimum pH. Others, Vincent, pH activates the enzyme. Different enzymes work at different conditions. Cherabo Pal, you're saying, I think it's because enzymes have a specific pH at which they work. Okay. Yes, thank you very much. Teacher Arthur is sharing some of our answers. Sorry, is sharing the questions there. So yes, I'm happy people are giving us this. We know when we studied our biology in senior 2 on nutrient compounds, that every enzyme has a specific pH at which it works well. Once the pH is changed from that, the enzyme gets inactive. And so it cannot speed up the reaction, okay? So I'm glad that we have those answers. Thank you for all those bringing in the correct answers. Optimum temperature affects enzymes. Maybe let me just ask this as we move to the next question. Oh, someone is talking of optimum temperature now. Galaxy. Can we sort this out? Teacher Arthur emphasized that what these scientists noted was about the pH at which our enzyme was working. We know very well even temperature affects enzymes, but for this particular scenario, they have not talked about the temperature. They are telling you what the scientists in the industry have discovered. For them, they are bothered about pH. So let us not look at the effect of different temperatures on enzymes. We shall now be setting a different task. When you go to these people in the factory, they'll tell you, but for us, we told you about pH. We are comfortable with enzymes. So be careful when you're reading through these tasks. Find out what problem have these people come with. We would not like you to be the kind of, for example, doctors tomorrow, someone comes complaining about headache, and then you say, yeah, even your leg can pain. No, 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 no. Concentrate on the issue at hand. So those talking about, I see Edgar and so on, let us go back to the effect of of pH on the activity of enzymes, okay? Teacher Arthur, we can move to the next question.
Okay, but Teacher Eva, maybe I can also add on that, of course, we know that good enough they have discovered that it is about investigating effect of factors that affect enzyme activity. And there are very many. Teachers must have taught you the pH, they must have taught you enzyme concentration, substrate concentration, temperature, etc. Yes, they have taught you all that. Now we have a problem at hand. And this problem is specifically about pH. Now, you switch only to this. So you have to focus. And good enough, in our scenario, we are focusing. The scenario is very clear. They don't know the best pH, just pH. They have not said enzyme concentration, they have not said substitution, they have not said temperature, pH. So that's why we have to focus. Now, it takes us back to the next question, which is, what happens if the pH is too high or too low for an enzyme? Now, all this, you have to first ask yourself, and you must have them answered if you are to go and attempt this item and be able to know actually even what you are doing. It is not just about going full blast. Oh, I need this, I need, just do it. You have to be knowing what you are doing and why you are doing it. Now, this is the question now. What happens if the pH is too high or too low for an enzyme? Maybe better even, do we know what does it mean to have high pH and low pH? All those. Who can come and elaborate? What happens if the pH is too low or too high? And maybe what is too high and what is too low? Okay, Ryan. Yes, Ryan.
Okay, hello everyone. So what I understand by pH, right? It means you know that it's from 1 to 14. So when we say that the pH is too high, it means that the body is very alkaline and it has values greater than 11. That is what I understand. And when we say that the pH is too low, that is that it is too acidic. That means it has values from 1.
Thank you, Ryan. Talents, you can unmute. You give us your version as well.
Yeah, I think like when the enzyme pH is too low, like, and so it is inactive. And when it's so high, it's denatured.
Okay, thank you, Talents. So you're saying too high, it is denatured, then too low, it is inactive. Okay, interesting. Any other? Okay. Teacher Eva, do you have any comment on the first? Because I was not hearing so well. Do you have any comment on the first respondent? Then maybe I can come to the second one.
The respondent was not very clear, but I think they are both emphasizing the enzyme getting inactive. And now they are bringing in a word denatured also, which we tend to use more in a certain side. But I think both of them are clearly saying the moment you either have too low or too high, the enzyme will not work well. Enzymes, remember we said they have a specific shape. So when you change the pH from the optimum, the ideal pH, the shape of the enzyme changes, so it does not work very well. That is what is most important. I think that is what they are bringing in, although they are pointing out words like denatured and inactive.
Okay. Now, actually, it is interesting that this question came out, because here now we get to know the misconceptions and it's all of them. Now, I like, someone said that if the enzyme is too high, then it means it will denature. Then if the enzyme is too low, then it means it is, sorry, if the pH is too low, it is inactive. Well, now, we use that when we are now describing effect of temperature. Now, in temperature, we know that very low temperatures inactivate enzymes, hence making enzymes inactive. Very high temperatures denature enzymes, therefore rendering the enzymes not to work properly. Now, where is now the misconception here? Here is the, now, for pH, pH can be high, it can be low. That is a fact. But the definition of the high or the interpretation of the high shouldn't be the same as when you're interpreting temperature. Now, we know that pH is measured on a scale. pH is measured on a scale. We have, the pH actually goes from 0 up to 14. I'm trying to see if I can access that pH scale online, so that now learners can get to know what do we mean when we say pH is high, and how best can we interpret it. Okay, it is here. It is here. I think I have got it. Just in a moment, I should be displaying it. Okay. That is now, okay. I think it has come through. So let me now share my screen so that what I'm also having can come through. Okay, so I will share this. I hope my pH chart is coming through. Teacher Eva, is my pH chart coming through?
Yes, it is.
Very interesting. Now, this is what we call a pH scale. Now, pH scale is measured from 0 up to 14. Now, the 14 here is cut from 0 up to 14. And these figures have meanings. You can see that we are saying that this side acidic, in the middle neutral, towards the end alkaline. Now, it means that pH from 0 to around the 6 to around the 5, that pH is acidic. Then it also means pH from 7 or maybe from 6 to 8, that pH is neutral. Then again, pH 9 to 14, that pH is alkaline. That is, so it means, but when I go by the numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, these are low numbers. Therefore, I would say the pH is low. Then when I go by the numbers, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, those numbers are big. Then now it means the pH is high. Therefore, when we say high pH, we are basically meaning alkaline pH. Then when we say low pH, we are basically meaning acidic pH. At least when if you see from these numbers here, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, that is low pH. And what does it mean? It is acidic. And again, the property of enzyme or the factor of enzyme that we are investigating, we said that enzymes work best under specific pH. So the pH must be specific. What is specific? It means it is either acidic or neutral or alkaline, just like that. So when we say that enzymes work under specific pH, it means that they are to work under either acidic and not any other, or they are to work under neutral and not any other, or they are to work under alkaline and not any other. Back to our task. We are to investigate which pH would enable our enzyme Q convert the starch into something sweet. So it doesn't mean that too low inactive. No, we are now learning that when we say low pH, we are basically meaning acidic. Why? Because those are the figures that are given to acidic pH. If we say high pH, these are the figures. The figures are big. Look at 14, 13, 12. So that's what we mean by high and too low. Now the question is it true that high alkaline denatures enzymes? The answer is outward. We don't know. No, we don't. Or maybe we are not sure, because we're saying that it means that enzymes that work under acid alkaline, it is clear they will not work under acidic. Does it mean that alkalinity is denaturing the enzyme? If yes, then it also means if we come to acidic, this is the low pH now. Acidic means low pH. It also means that now, since enzymes are specific, so it means now enzymes that do not work under acidic, it means that now acidic pH would denature them. So that's how we interpret it, that enzymes that work under acidic or enzymes that do not work under acidic, the pH would denature them. Then enzymes that do not work under alkaline, the pH would denature them. So that's how we interpret it. Okay. I hope that one is clear. I hope now we should. Okay. Okay. When I peruse through.
I think you bring back the questions.
Okay.
Someone though has something in the chat. I don't know if they are just emphasizing that I think we are just talking about different pH, but not their intensity of being high or low. This is because, yes, I know we are using the words high and low, but teacher Arthur has emphasized that when I say high pH, I'm actually talking of alkaline conditions. When I say low pH, I'm talking of acidic conditions. Okay, but we started, those who are just joining, we have agreed we are going to test our enzyme Q to see if it works. We are going to check 3 conditions because our biology tells us some enzymes work best in acidic conditions, others work best in alkaline conditions, and some work best in neutral conditions. Now, we do not know where enzyme Q works best. So that is why we shall set up the 3 and see which of those favors the activity of enzyme Q. Teacher Arthur, we were almost done, I think, with the questions. So maybe one thing I could say, if we find out now the best pH, that is the last question I see there, for enzyme Q, then what will we suggest to those people in safe food industries? Do we just carry out our experiment and say, hey, the best pH for this enzyme is such and such? What information will we now give the people of the food industry? Can we have some idea? Because those are the questions, as we have said, which should be running in your mind as you now start the experiment. You don't just get to the paper and say, aim, hypothesis, variables. No, you must have thought. So can we share some of the answers? What information would you give these people after you have found out the best pH for the activity of enzyme Q? You can still...
Very interesting question. Now that you have known, you have to find out the best pH. Now, you have found it out. What would you suggest to safe food industries? What should they do? Remember, we are solving a problem here. And the task is we are supposed to advise safe industries what they should do. What are you going to use that information for? How would you...
Some answers are coming in through the chat, Teacher Arthur. Caesar says, I think we have to know the enzyme Q to determine the pH that it works best. Caesar, we are going to get back at you. We do not have to know the name of the enzyme. We don't even have to know its properties, but we can carry out an experiment and find the pH at which it works best. Then Bishop...
A moment, maybe let us first hear from Anna.
Okay, Anna.
Teacher, after finding out which level that it works best in, which pH it works best in, you would advise them to let the enzyme be in that specific condition so that it can work best.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Very brilliant. More responses, Eva, in the chat?
Yes, someone is saying, similar to Anna, I think this is Ria, that we recommend them to expose their enzyme to that pH to convert the cassava to a sweet solution or whatever. Very good. We recommend them to work under the specific pH so that it works best. I think this is so good. So then someone called Daniel is saying, depending on the pH I found out, now I can advise the SIFE to provide such conditions when they're carrying out the process. I think everyone is giving us some very good idea. Now, someone is still asking, does the experiment also have variables? My dear, please follow the experiment as we are driving it. So Teacher Arthur, I think those in the chat have given us correct responses.
Okay, thank you. Okay, now that we have the background information to this task for us here, we now know why safe industries wants to do what it wants to do. We now know what we have to do. We know of the enzyme. We now know that it is about investigating the best pH under which it works. Now, all that background information we now have. Now, the question next is, how should we now prepare ourselves for this task? The task now, we're now going now to the real experiment. We're now going to see how can we carry out this investigation. Now, when you're carrying out an investigation, there is a session that we go through, and that is called planning. So to me, the assessor, I have to see evidence that this learner planned. This learner planned for their investigation. They executed it, and they are now able to report the results to me, or the observations to me, and they're now able to make appropriate recommendations. Now, what is involved in the planning? That's the question now. What is involved in the planning? Now, Okay. Now, what is involved in the planning here? I hope, okay, I thought I was sharing my screen. Let me share this. Okay, I'm sharing that. I hope it is coming through. Now, what is involved in the planning? Which evidence do you have to give me, or do you have to show me that indeed you have carried out this experiment following the known scientific procedures? Now, the first thing that I need evidence on is your planning. So planning is the first skill that I have to look out for. And what is in this planning? So as you're planning, it's where you have to come up with your aim. Planning now. You come up with your aim. You come up with your hypothesis. You set your variables clear. Then you list the materials that you will need. So those are the 4 things that I need you to show me for me to be able to, for me to be convinced that indeed you did the planning. I've said, show me the aim, or give me the aim. Give me the hypothesis. Give me the variables, and then give me the materials that you are going to use for this particular task that I have given you. Then when we finish that step, we now go to the next stage. Now, over to you. What would be the appropriate aim to this task here? What would be the appropriate aim to this task here? Over to you. Now, we are on the planning session. We are on the planning session. We now want
Someone called Samsung has a hand up.
Okay. Kindly unmute and you tell us. Someone using Samsung.
Okay.
Are there responses coming through in the chat room, Eva?
Not yet.
Excuse me, Madam.
Yeah.
I wanted to inquire, okay, like when do we apply the idea for the variables?
Okay. Okay, where do we apply the idea of the variables? Of course, we've said that we are now in the planning session. So I need evidence from you that you have planned. And these are the things that you report on. Give me the aim, give me the hypothesis, give me the variables, and then give me the materials. Now, we are not now on the variables. Now we are going now bit by bit. First, do you know the aim, the experiment that you want to carry out? If you give me that aim, then we shall now proceed to the hypothesis. From the hypothesis, we shall now proceed to the variables. Then from the variables, we shall now proceed to the materials. So we are noted there. Yes, Rhoda. Rhoda?
Yes, teacher. Yes, teacher. Okay, according to me, aim will be to determine the ideal pH for enzyme Q and make appropriate recommendations to Solve Food Industries Limited.
That is interesting. So you're saying to determine ideal pH conditions for enzyme Q and be able to advise Safe Food Industries. That's interesting. So you're going to determine the ideal pH. That's interesting. Okay.
Nabisunsa has a hand up.
Nabisunsa?
Okay, I think the aim for this experiment is to investigate the suitable pH medium the enzyme Q works best in to make cassava sweet and easy to absorb.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. Someone using ITEL? Someone using ITEL, you can unmute yourself. Okay, it's not coming through.
We can look at a few from the chat. Oh, first of all, Philemon, okay.
An experiment to determine the ideal pH at which an enzyme Q breaks down polysaccharides in cassava into simpler sugars, making the cassava sweet and easy to absorb.
That's interesting. I had 2 or 3 responses from the chat from Eva, then we proceed.
Yes, Linia says, a scientific experiment to determine the ideal pH for enzyme Q and make appropriate recommendations to site food industries. I'll just pick at random. This is Mugisha. An experiment to determine the appropriate pH level for enzyme Q to break down the cassava. Would you like another?
One more, then we go.
Desire says, to determine the ideal pH of enzyme Q to break down the polysaccharides in cassava to make it sweet.
Okay, thank you. Now, that's very interesting. Now, one thing is clear in all our aims. Something is clear. You are stating it clearly that you are going to investigate the ideal pH for enzyme Q. That is the key word that I want. That when I read your aim, okay, Risha is saying for sure it confuses a lot. No, it does not confuse. Doesn't confuse. Now, we are saying that the aim, when I read your aim, I should be able to capture at least what are you going to do. So when I read through all your aims, at least I'm able to know that someone is going to investigate the ideal pH. Now, that becomes my keyword in the aim. In other words, the aim that you write, it must be clear to me, or it must be very clear about what you are going to do. That's what we call the aim. I read it, it should be clear to me what you are going to do. For instance, if you say, investigate ideal pH for enzyme Q, then it is very clear. You are going to investigate ideal pH. For what? It's okay. We have already captured that you are going to determine the ideal pH. So that is an aim. And there, all of us, we have scored. We are correct. Now we can go to the next step of planning. We are now done with the aim. The next step is now the hypothesis. Another this is when now trouble will come. The hypothesis. Before maybe you bring in your expected hypothesis, it is important that we get to understand what is a hypothesis. What is a hypothesis? There are so many things about hypothesis, but I just want to simplify it to us. You're basically guessing the expected results. But it is not just about guessing. You should be having the reason. There should be at least background information. It is not just to predict that I predict this and that. What is the scientific reason you're having behind your guess? What is the scientific reason you're having behind your prediction? So it means that you expect to get something or you predict to get something, but your prediction is based on some scientific evidence or scientific proof that you have. Now, that's what constitutes a hypothesis. You have a prediction. Of course, I don't think that anyone can go for an experiment when you don't know what to get. Now we have known what we are going to do. At least we expect to get a result. Now, what is your prediction? What do you think we'll find out? And I also need a reason why you think like that. So over to you. What is the best hypothesis here? What is the best hypothesis here?
There are some hands up. I don't know if they just forgot to put down their hands. But Daniel in the chat is saying, presence of much reducing sugars in the test solution indicates optimum pH for enzyme activity of enzyme Q. That is the hypothesis he's giving. Maybe the people who have hands up want to talk also. Promise? Promise you can unmute.
Yes, I would like to know something about the hypothesis. Our teacher told us that when you are writing hypothesis, you can assume something that you might get at the end of your result. So it can be negative or positive. So there, it's hard for me also to assume such kind of things. So I still need clarification from your side. So thank you. That's what I would like to know.
That's interesting. He's saying that the teacher told him a hypothesis can be something negative or positive. Okay. Okay, we shall talk about that. Yes, Lauren, you can unmute.
Yes, teacher. My hypothesis could be that enzyme Q works best under specific pH.
Enzyme Q works under specific pH. Lauren, why? What is the scientific reasoning you have for that?
Because like to test for enzyme reaction, there are different pH levels that the test solution can be placed in, like acidic, alkaline, and neutral. So either of the three, one will be able to work best.
That is interesting. So you're saying that it is common knowledge that if I'm to test for enzyme activity, I know that it works under specific pH. So to you're saying, so since you have 3 pH, acidic, alkaline, and neutral, so for you, you're sure your enzyme will work under one of those pH. It works under specific pH. That's a good hypothesis that enzyme Q will work best under a specific pH. That's interesting. Yes, Ronald. Ronald, you can unmute. Someone called Ewani. Ronald, you can unmute and give us a submission. Okay, let us, you have now the Superito. Yes, Superito, you can unmute and talk to us. Superito, are you there?
I would like to know, can I give out another hypothesis?
It's okay, as long as it is a prediction.
For my hypothesis is the enzyme T will work best in alkaline pH.
I beg your pardon?
I say the enzyme T will work best in alkaline pH.
What is the reason you have for that? Why do you think it will work under alkaline and not any other? How do you have a reason for that?
The reason, this enzyme is breaking down the starch, and most of the enzymes that react on starch work best in alkaline pH.
So for you know that most enzymes that work on starch work in Neutral? Neutral pH?
He said alkaline.
Alkaline. Now, so Pareto, if I may ask.
Yes.
There is an enzyme we find in the duodenum, pancreatic amylase. Have you heard of it?
Yes.
And what are the conditions in the duodenum? Are they neutral or alkaline?
Alkaline.
But is it now pancreatic amylase an enzyme that works on starch?
What?
Teacher Arthur, he's actually emphasizing that he thinks it works best in alkaline conditions.
For him, it was alkaline. Then I've changed my question now to salivary amylase in the mouth. But anyway, Sparito, yes, your prediction is very right. But however, it may not apply for all enzymes that work on starch. For instance, the conditions in our mouth, so if they are neutral, then it means that that salivary amylase in particular works best under neutral. Then the one works best under alkaline. So it is the wrong assumption to assume that most enzymes or all enzymes work under neutral. Okay.
I offer another hypothesis, please.
Pardon?
I give out another hypothesis.
Okay, no, let us give chance to another person.
All right.
Bishop Ilkor.
Thank you, Teacher Arthur. A little bit thick, not clear, but my hypothesis says enzyme Q work best at specific pH because enzymes work only at a specific pH.
That's very interesting. So he's saying it works under specific. So he's not committing himself. And why is he not committing himself? At least one thing is clear to him, that these enzymes work best under specific pH. So therefore, it means that we now have to carry out this investigation and find out which pH is that. That's an interesting hypothesis. If I feel like that we should proceed from there.
There is a question in the chat, which I think you've got to address. Why must you explain? Because a prediction is to be short and brief.
That's interesting. Now, take it from me that we are not saying that in the hypothesis you must explain. Take note of that. We're not saying that you must explain. We are saying it is just a prediction. You just give us your prediction. For example, I would say enzyme Q works best under specific pH, full stop. But I mean, at the back of your mind, even if we say prediction, it shouldn't just be a world prediction. We need to know the scientific reasoning that you have. You may put it on paper or you may not put it on paper. It's okay, as long as the prediction is coming out clear. So that's why some of you now, when they, like for example, Sparito, he had made his prediction. Of course, it is a prediction. It is okay to predict. But now again, when we went into give us a reason for your prediction, now we started now punching holes in his prediction. Started punching holes in it because the reason was not coming out clear. So let's that if he had a reason, perhaps maybe he would have also punched holes in his own prediction and therefore being forced to change it. So predict, but make sure that you have scientific reasoning to back up your prediction. You can include it on the statement, or you may not include it on your statement. That's how we predict. I hope it is answered, Eva.
Yes, but now the last one, I think a misconception, someone is speaking. They are asking, does it mean any prediction is right?
Now, when now you go to the reason behind that prediction, you yourself, you now start punching holes in your prediction. That's why we're saying that don't just predict. Do you have a reason for your prediction? So Even if it is a prediction, it must be backed up by scientific evidence. This evidence, you may show it to us, or you may not show it to us. Any other, Eva, or we can proceed?
I think that is it.
No.
Oh, they are chatting about the reasons. I think Teacher Arthur has been clear. You can have the reason at the back of your mind. It will guide you to get the right prediction. I think that's what we are saying. So it's not a must to put the reason to that statement of the hypothesis. But I would advise it's a must to think of a reason so that you check whether your prediction is a good one or a bad one.
That's exactly what it is. Okay, thank you. Then now we now have a prediction here. We now have an appropriate prediction or hypothesis. And the hypothesis we are going with is that enzyme Q works best under specific pH. So that's the prediction that we are going with. Very brief and precise. But again, don't aim at making your prediction brief. Just communicate yourself. You communicate. Even if it is 5 statements, as long as you be convinced that this is exactly what I wanted. So it shouldn't just be a matter of keeping the statement brief. Then I've also seen another interesting one. They're saying that enzyme Q is affected by pH. I think it is, I'm tending to accept that it is also correct. So if you say your prediction is enzyme Q is affected by pH, yes, then now it means you're going now to find out which pH actually affects enzyme Q. So it is also an interesting alternative hypothesis. Now, then there was the other one who was saying that the teacher told them hypothesis is either negative or positive. Now, it doesn't matter whether your prediction is coming in a negative way or your prediction is coming in a positive way. It doesn't matter. As long as for us, we are seeing that you are predicting. You are predicting. Someone is saying so.
The last interesting one is there is a difference in the activity of enzyme Q in low, neutral, and high pH. Okay, because enzymes work best at a specific pH.
We're just now playing around with the words. But one thing is clear. You are implying that this enzyme Q will be functional in a specific pH. So it is just an interplay of words. Okay. So I think now we're done with the hypothesis. We can now go to the variables. Now, what are, someone is now saying, can I rate a null hypothesis? Hey, now I'll go into the null hypothesis and alternative hypothesis. Now, whether null, I don't know what they have told you, what they have told you about null hypothesis, but for us, we are saying whether null hypothesis, whether alternative hypothesis, you should be able to predict just that. You can predict in negative. You can maybe say enzyme Q will not work under certain pH. I think that statement is negative. Enzyme Q will not work under certain pH. It is a prediction, and you're right. So it means you're now going to prove that. And by the hypothesis, you have it in the mind with the aim of now proving it wrong or right. So it doesn't matter whether I bring it negative or positive. The question is, have you predicted just that? Now, I think we can now go to, so kind of if I be perusing through the chat, pull out the misconceptions so that you can be able to address them. Now, we go to the variables. Now, when we talk of the variables, what's the definition of a variable that I would give you? Maybe anything that if manipulated, or anything that if changed will have an effect on your result. That is the variable. Anything that if manipulated or if changed will have an effect on your result. or something that you must alter, or something that you must vary, so that you can find out its effect on your reaction or on your investigation. So you're either going to vary it so that you can now see which effect is it having, or you are going to keep it constant so that you don't want to see it having any effect on your result. That is what we call a hypothesis. For instance, if I'm investigating, let me use this first example. I have my food solution. I will call it T. So I have my food solution T. I want to carry out investigations to find out which nutrients are present in my food solution T. So I have my food solution T. I want to carry out the iodine test, 1, vitamin C test, protein test. Let me just use those 3. So I have my solution T. I want to carry out the iodine test, the proteins test, also the vitamin C test. Now I'm asking myself, what are those things that I'll keep on changing to see the effect? And what is this effect that I'm talking about? What is the effect that I'm talking about? For instance, I'll know that if I have my food solution T, which effect will my food reagents, iodine, vitamin C, protein, which effect will it have on my solution T? It will have the effect of color, that if that my food solution that I'm having, I'm assuming that now I'm having tea in a test tube in my hands. Now, which effect will my reagents have on this food test here? That's what I want now to find out, to know what are the variables and what aren't the variables. So it means that if I carry iodine, I put it in my tea, iodine is going to have an effect on my tea in terms of color change. So it means that this iodine is affecting the color by tea. I'll take note of that. I will again maintain my solution in tea. Maybe I'll pour this, but again, I have another solution in tea. I bring another reagent, I put it there. Which effect is now this reagent, or which effect is the other reagent I have used, the second reagent, going to have on my food solution? It is again to change the color of my food solution. I go for the protein test. I get those reagents. I add them into solution T. Which effect is this reagents I've used going to have on my tea? Again, color change. It means that what have I been changing on my test on solution T? I have been changing the food reagents. So I kept on alternating the food reagents one at a time. So it means one of the things I have been varying is actually food reagents. That one is clear. I have been varying food reagents. So that is one of the variables. Secondly, as I was varying my reagents, was I changing this solution T? I was not changing solution T. So I was maintaining all the 3 tests I have done: the iodine test, the vitamin C test, the protein test. I have been doing all of them onto one food solution, and that is food solution T. Therefore, food sample T is also my variable, though I have been keeping it constant. Though I have been keeping it constant. Then, what was the effect of changing food reagents on my solution T? The effect was the color changes. So it means that every time I would change the food reagents, I would get different colors. So it means the color changes are also variables. So in that case, I'm discovering that there are three things I'm talking about. There are three things I'm calling the variables. One, the food reagents used. Secondly, the food solution that they have used. And thirdly, the color changes. Now, those are what I'm going to call my variables. I know at first it must be confusing. Obviously, I would be surprised if someone would say that, oh, everything is clear. Now, back to our question now. We have this question of safe food industries. They now want to carry out the experiment. They want to investigate the effect of pH. Now, how will I design my experiment? This is what I will do. This is what I'm going to do. I know I have 3 pH. So if I have 3 pH, it means that in one test tube, I have neutral pH. In the second test tube, I have acidic pH. In the third test tube, I have alkaline pH. Those are 3. So it means throughout my 3 test tubes, I'm varying the pH. pH is changing. So it means pH is my variable here. pH is a variable. Hope that one is clear to all of us now. Why I'm saying pH is a variable. Because in the 3 test tubes, it is clear it is the pH which is changing. That is one. Then, as I'm changing the pH, what is the effect of pH on my 3 test tubes? This pH definitely is going to affect how the enzyme works. So it is going to affect the rate of enzyme activity. pH, which I'm varying from each test tube, is going to affect the rate by enzyme activity. Therefore, it means that rate of enzyme activity is also going to be another variable. Then, secondly, not secondly, the third thing is, in these 3 test tubes, I must have kept some parameters constant. I must have kept them constant. Not so? Because if I add 1 cubic centimeter of the cassava solution, I should maintain that 1 cubic centimeter throughout the entire 3 test tubes. If I add the enzyme, the solution Q, I should maintain the same volume I add in test tube 1, should be the same volume I add in test tube 2, should be the same volume I add in test tube 3. Therefore, it means that the volume of the enzyme used is also a variable, though it is a constant variable. So it means that, so in this case, the volume of enzyme used also becomes a variable. But also the volume of the food sample used, also becomes a variable as well. So how many, maybe if I may ask those who have been following, how many variables have I talked about so far? You can give them to me. How many variables have we recorded so far from my presentation? How many variables? Someone is saying 3. Please write those 3. What are they? Rosalind, you can unmute.
The pH, the rate of enzymes activity, and the solution Q of the enzyme, then the cassava solution.
What about the cassava solutions? What have we talked about them?
They're constant. That means they are the independent variable. They don't change. The volume added is constant.
That is the word I was looking out for. The volume. Same. The volume of the cassava extract. So you have given us 3. And then with another alternative answer.
You have talked of the pH. You have talked of the volume of the cassava solution being constant, volume of the enzyme also being constant, and the
Okay. So we somehow lost you. Okay. So we can now go with those ones. We have known that we have talked about pH. We have talked about rate of enzyme activity. We have talked about volume of the enzyme. And we also talked about volume of the food sample, or the volume of the cassava extract. Now, the way I have listed them, pH, rate of enzyme activity, volume of the enzyme, volume of the food sample. Kindly state your variables like that. I have not gone into the nitty-gritties of which one is independent, which one is dependent, which one is constant. Save yourself from that hassle. What you need to know is, do you know the variables here? I hope that one is clear. Now, don't ask me questions. Which one is the independent? Which one is the dependent? Which one is controlled for? The question is, do you know how to identify out the variables? And if you do identify them out, what are they? Can you report them that this is a variable, this is a variable, and also this is a variable? Is that clear? Is that making our work simpler and easier? Or you feel like, what? Which one is independent? Which one is independent? Teacher, if I think that now work becomes much easier, not so?
Yes, so much easier. Though many are seeming in the chat, seeming to doubt it, they feel, I think they want to put it. Someone is saying, teacher, I'm confused because we were told not to use variables in food tests. Now, remember this experiment has some food tests in it. So, according to this person, whatever has food tests, there are no variables. You can speak about that.
Okay. Now, you were told that there are no variables in a food test. For us, we are saying, if you're given a task, if you're given a scenario, are you sure that aren't there things you'll have to change to see the effect? Are you sure there are things aren't there things that you have to first maintain so that you now investigate the effect others you're changing are having on it? If they are there, then those should be your variables. That is why even I had to start with it, that suppose I'm given solution in T, and I'm tasked to carry out 3 investigations on it. One, find out, does it contain starch? Does it contain vitamins? Does it contain proteins? What do I do? I know that I will hold my tea, my solution tea, maintain it. Then I have now to keep on changing the reagents I'm using to test on it. Therefore, it means the fact that I'm changing these reagents, I bring the first reagent, I see the effect. Okay. I pick another reagent, I pick T, I add, I see what is the effect. I note down, say, okay. I still get T, I pick another reagent, I pour in, I see what does it have. What am I doing? I'm keeping solution T constant. I'm controlling solution T. Then I'm varying the reagents I'm using on this solution T. Therefore, it means that the reagents used now become variables. And then again, I ask myself, when I add these variables I'm changing into solution T, which effect do they have on my T? I'll be seeing different colors on this solution, because if I add iodine, I will see blue. If I add vitamins, I will see colorless. If I add sodium hydroxide and copper 2 sulfate, I will see purple. What is this? Color changes. So it means color changes are also now interesting. They keep on changing. Every chemical you use, the color changes, the colors change. So it means that color changes in this case are also variables because they keep on changing. I'm carrying out my experiment on solution in T. So ideally it means if I have solution in T and I have different food solutions, so the food reagents, I have variables there. And I have told you the variables and why I'm calling them variables. But if I have solution in T, I have iodine, and I want to test iodine on this solution in T. On the iodine, what am I going to change? Will I keep on changing solution in T? Do I have another solution? Do I have to change iodine? Nothing. There's nothing I'm changing there. So it means if I have one food solution, one reagent, I don't have variables. But if I have a scenario whereby they want me to carry out different tests on this food solution, I have variables there. So unlearn and learn that there are scenarios where we can have variables in food tests. Even if we don't have enzymes, we can have variables there. Then another thing that I'm telling you is this. How do you now state your variables? Dependent, independent, or controlled for. Save yourself that hassle. Identify out the variables, outline them. These are my variables. If you want to commit yourself, we shall not stop you from doing it. We shall not stop you from doing it. So those are the variables. Eva, we have serious misconceptions.
The very last, I think there's a way you mentioned that they were to be stated in some way. So someone asked, is it a must that I must list them in the order? Why?
Just give us the variables. Just give us the variables. Just give them to us.
Well-stated variables. Okay. Thank you, teacher. I thought we can proceed to the materials over.
Okay. Now, after the variables, you now go to materials. Remember, we are still on planning. After variables, we now go to materials. Now, from our task, teacher Eva, kindly you display to them what are these materials that we shall need for us to be able to carry out this experiment here? So, Bakene now take us through what are the materials that we shall need. Then maybe these learners can now tell us the relevance or the importance of each of those materials vis-a-vis our scenario.
Okay. First and foremost, we must have the test solutions. We must have solution Q, which is the enzyme. And usually it will be provided to you either in a test tube or a beaker. Then you will also have the starch solution. In this case, it will not be called, I think it was labeled solution T. It will also be provided to you in a beaker. Then you are going to have the solutions which are supposed to help you provide neutral, acidic, and alkaline conditions. Here, I would like you to help me. What can I use to make sure that enzyme is provided with acidic conditions? Can I have some ideas? Then what would I use to make sure that enzyme is provided with alkaline conditions? And also what can I use to provide the enzyme with neutral conditions? Quick, maybe we can use, someone can share by talking so that I show you if I have them. So someone is saying, okay, I don't know if some hands are not going down, so I'm wondering. Nincha Alex, tell us what we can use. Unmute. Okay, I have issues. Candy Beans, you have unique names. Candy Beans. Okay, if those in the chat are failing, sorry.
You can mute Candy and Ninja, you can unmute, it's okay? Okay, maybe you can have now Nabisusa girls.
For the alkaline media, what we use is sodium hydroxide.
Okay, I already have it here.
For the acidic medium, what we use is hydrochloric acid. Then for the neutral medium, what we use is distilled water.
Okay, then we also have our distilled water. That is very good. So you notice that she is getting something acidic to provide the acidic medium, something alkaline to provide the alkaline medium, and then distilled water is known to be neutral. So that should give us the neutral condition. We will not carry out this experiment in saucepans, so we use test tubes. These will usually be provided to you. They'll be there in the lab. If you don't have enough, you ask for them. You could need something to get out the solutions depending on what your school has. We usually use droppers. Okay, we have a dropper like this one, which is we know how to use it. We shall see how you use it. It can be used to measure the quantities that you will use. So you will have a dropper if your school has many, or you can be given, sorry, if it has few, you could be given one. If you're very rich, you could be given 3 droppers. Now, somewhere there, people kept saying we might need a water bath to maintain the temperature at which the enzyme is working. You could choose to just mix your solutions and maintain them in a rack, in which case you're carrying out the conditions, the experiment at room temperature, just having them on a test tube rack. But you could use your biology because you know enzymes work best at a certain temperature. You provide that temperature. And how you provide it, you can make what we call a water bath. This will be made by you. So you can have maybe a plastic cup or a plastic beaker and then some hot water. In such a case, you will need a thermometer to measure to see that you have the appropriate temperature that you want to maintain your mixture at. You will need, if your school has enough stopwatches, you'll need a stopwatch, but if, even your watch can work. So please don't give up and say, I don't have a stopwatch, I can't carry out the experiment. Depending, you might need indicator solution, although I don't think it's a must-have because you're sure that the solutions you've been given have those different pHs. You could need also label papers. Labeling is a very important skill. You have small pieces of paper which you can tear and stick to your test tubes for labeling. If your school doesn't have these very well manufactured ones, you could use masking tape. Some people use pieces of paper which stick for some time. But anyway, you'll need also some label papers. So Teacher Arthur, those are the materials that we have ready for this experiment.
That's interesting. Now, it is clear to us that before you now start carrying out the real investigation, make sure, develop a list of the materials that you need, have them with you, and do even a check. I will need a water bath. What do I need for a water bath? I need water, put water there. What will I need? I need a thermometer to measure the temperature. You put the thermometer there. I need test tubes. How many test tubes? Maybe 3 or 4. You put them there. I need the food solutions. You put the in. You prepare yourself. You prepare yourself. Then after you have now your materials, you list them. Now it's say you are now done with the session of planning. So that is what constitutes what we call planning. The planning. So for planning, we're now done with the 4. We said for planning, give us the aim, give us the hypothesis, give us the variables, give us the materials, just like that. Then now, after the planning, you now go to another session of implementation. Now, what do you find in the implementation? Maybe let us first have these people who have raised their hands. What do they have to tell us? Yes, Ninja Alex? You have a question? Ninja, you can unmute yourself. Okay, maybe the hand was forgotten up. Okay, then someone using the global Nokia. Someone using global Nokia. Okay, people are failing to unmute. Okay, Ninja, you can unmute yourself. Last chance. Ninja, can you unmute yourself and talk to us? Okay, maybe he's facing challenges with the unmuting. Dokolo Agwata SS. Maybe someone can help and unmute and you communicate to us. Agwata SS from Dokolo. Santina. Yes, Santina, you can unmute yourself.
Okay, according to me, the implementation, you're supposed to conduct the experiment and record results, and then you present the data using your knowledge on different apparatus and techniques.
That's interesting. Carry out the investigation, obtain the data, and record it. Those are the 3 things. Carry out the investigation, obtain the data, and record it. Now, we need evidence for that. And how to show evidence? How do you show evidence for carrying out the experiment, obtaining the data, and recording that data? Now, that's where we are going to. So it means that now, under the implementation, so we shall have our procedures, then we shall have our results. These results can as well be observations. These are mainly the 2 things. We need procedures and then we need observations. I hope that one is very clear to us. Now people still have hands up. I hope now they have figured out a way unlocking themselves. Someone using Ashifik, you have a question or a response? Ashifik, are you there? Yes, Ashifik. Okay. Someone using Global Nokia, are you able to unmute? The Dokolo group, are you able to unmute yourself? You can see the video is on. Are you able to unmute yourself? Maybe still they have challenges in doing that. Okay. Now,
Teacher Arthur,
yes, Eva.
as those people unmute, someone is asking, what if they didn't list the materials and then they just included them in the procedure at this implementation stage, but they didn't put them up in the planning?
Okay, the response is simple. You have not shown proper planning, because how can you plan for what you have not collected? So it means you have not shown proper planning. As simple as that. So we shall fault you on the planning session because you're not a good planner. But nevertheless, now, why would you do it? You have now known what to do. Why would you do it? Any other Eva, or we can proceed?
I think we can proceed.
Okay.
Maybe just a little bit, someone is asking, should we tabulate the procedure together with the observation and the deduction?
Okay, that's an interesting question. Maybe what I can say is that for you, just follow. You follow the scientific methods. Follow the scientific report of doing things. You follow the scientific report. Maybe let me, though this one is going to be a bit off, have it here. Now, this one may now raise more questions. Now, maybe what I can show them is, now when you look at, just a moment. Now, when you look at what I have displayed, the yellow, let us focus on the yellow. Don't read the scenario. Let us focus on the yellow. This is the proposed scientific way of presenting a report. This one here. So you can copy and write it down. For you, follow this. Now, whether you're going to tabulate, whether you're going to do what, for us we shall ask ourselves, have you followed the scientific way? Have you given us the aim? Have you given us the hypothesis? Have you given us the variables? Have you listed the requirements? Have you given us the procedures? Have you given us the results? Those are the things that we shall be looking out for. I hope I was sharing the right document.
Yes, we saw it.
Oh, that one.
Mm.
Okay. So now those ones of tables, I don't know how you're going to use tables. It's okay, but are all of these things captured in your presentation? That is what we are interested in knowing. Is it captured? If it is not captured, then you'll be faulted on some of the steps. Okay, Ninja Alex, okay, he has gone. So now, Teacher Eva, kindly, you take them through the steps of carrying out that experiment. You demonstrate to them that they can now get to know what is the best way of carrying out this experiment. And also those ones from their respective schools. If you have these materials with you, you can also do the same. So we are now at the phase of carrying out these illustrations. But Teacher Eva will now be guiding us on step by step. How do we carry out this investigation. Over to you, Teacher Eva.
Okay. Thank you, Teacher Arthur. I have my materials here in front of me to use. Now, there are some slight variations in how you'll carry out the procedure, but I'll use mine. When you get to the exam, you're free to write the procedure that works, although it has a standard of what it should be related to. So we agreed that we are going to set up this experiment and put the enzyme Q and our starch solution in 3 different conditions: acidic, neutral, and alkaline. So the very first step is we must label the apparatus that we are going to use. We will mix them from test tubes. So it's important that we label our test tubes. I will get one from using my label paper. I have the first test tube labeled as acidic. It means I'll carry out my experiment. Whatever I mix with acidic conditions will be in this test tube. Then I will also label alkaline. I had already written the names on my label papers. Don't worry. You'll also have to write yours. So first step is to label. Maybe I would ask as I do this, why is it important to label? Can't I carry out the experiment without labeling? Can some people share? Because I want us to reflect on whatever we are doing. How good is it? How bad is it? Okay. Can someone tell us why we are labeling? Yes, Chirabo, you can unmute.
Oh yeah, so we label in order, to avoid mixing the different results, because some, not like the things that you're going to add to the pH adjusters are all colorless. So you might not know where you've put acidic, where you've put alkaline, and where you've kept it neutral. That's why we label.
Okay. Thank you very much, my dear. Let me make sure that we can see my apparatus well. I hope it's clear there. Good, we have labeled our 3 test tubes. Now we must put in them the solutions that we want to use. And the first one we are going to put is the starch solution. You will indicate even in your procedure how much of this starch solution you're using. In my case, because I want it uniform, I can choose that I'm going to put there about 1 centimeter cubed. If you have a dropper in your school, the dropper is graduated. When you suck up the liquid moves up to a certain level. Mine is above 1, so I reduce a bit. Then I put that measured volume in each of the test tubes. I make sure I'm putting there 1 centimeter cubed. So that is my step number 2. I am measuring equal amounts of the starch solution and putting them in my 3 test tubes. You can see them. I have chosen to use this equal amount is 1 centimeter cubed. In this case, after measuring the starch solution, I will now put equal amounts again of the enzyme to this mixture. So I will go on and measure about 1 centimeter cubed. These are things you'll have written even in your procedure. Okay, so I have put equal amounts of the enzyme. That is my step number 2. Now I have in my 3 test tubes, enzyme and the substrate, which is the starch solution. But now I have to put those conditions we talked about: neutral, alkaline, and acidic. I will get my solutions again. We said hydrochloric acid is what we shall use to make the pH acidic. So I get my test tube labeled acidic. I hope you can see it there. Then I'll add I can put 3 drops of the hydrochloric acid, a little, to make the conditions acidic. If you have litmus, you could even test with it to confirm. So that is acidic. Then I remove the hydrochloric acid. I bring the sodium hydroxide. This is my bottle of sodium hydroxide, which I will also get a few drops. 3 will do. I try to make it constant. Those are my 3 drops. That is, now that one has alkaline conditions. Then for the neutral, I have my distilled water here. So again, I will get a few drops of my distilled water and put in the test tube labeled neutral. I think this is my test tube. We said we're using 3. 1, 2, 3. Whatever quantity you use should be uniform. We said these are things we should try to maintain constant. So I have finished mixing. Now, in your procedure, you could choose to leave this at room temperature, but then it will take you a much longer time for the enzyme to break. It will take you a much longer time for the enzyme to break down the starch. So in order to speed it up, you make sure that your enzyme is working at what we call the optimum temperature, the best temperature for that enzyme. Maybe in the chat or raising the hands, can someone tell me what would the best temperature be for this enzyme to work best? What temperature should I use? Okay, you can use the chat or raise your hand. Yes, in the chat I see 35 to 40, 40, 30. Okay, yes, we are going to look for temperatures. Let me go back to my apparatus. I hope it's clear. Teacher Arthur, are my apparatus very clear?
Yes, very clear.
Okay. So I'm going on now to make sure that I keep my setup at an ideal temperature. Those who are talking of ranges from 35 to 40, yes, you're very right. Our body temperature is 37. Around 37. So enzymes work best at that temperature. So even in the laboratory, it would be very good to create that situation so that our mixture is maintained at that temperature and the experiment proceeds well. So to make that temperature, I'm going to make a water bath. And what do I need? I'll need some hot water and a plastic cup. So over here, I have my hot water. I'll put it in my plastic cup. I need to note its temperature. Then I'll slowly add some cold water so that it gets to the appropriate temperature. So when I look at my thermometer there, I'm trying to make a reading. My temperature is at about 60 degrees Celsius. Please practice reading your thermometers at school. So I'll add some water so that the temperature, cold water now, so that the temperature drops. Or you could do it the other way around. You start with cold and add the warm water. Whatever is easier for you. Although I think it is safer to start with cold for safety. Anyhow, I'll put some water and check the temperature of my thermometer is reading. My temperature has dropped a little bit. Okay. When I look at it, my temperature has reached around 39. which is the temperature range we are accepting from 35 to 40. So I carry my my 3 test tubes, put them there. One of my labels is getting off. And then you let the experiment to sit for some time because the results are not going to come immediately. So maybe, again, I will ask you people, how long do you think we should incubate this? Should I leave it for the whole day? Remember, I'm in a practical session. Should I keep it for the whole day? Should I keep it for 1 hour? What would be the appropriate time? Again, I'll be glad if I had hands. Yes, in the chat, people are talking of 30 minutes, 40. 3 is very little. 1 hour and so on.
That's interesting. Suppose
Pardon?
the paper is for 2 hours.
The paper is 2 hours. So you don't have the privilege to keep it for very long. After you could read the times, because when I move my screen, I change the focus of my apparatus.
I think I think you leave it for 10 minutes.
Okay.
Then I change. Acheng, you can unmute and talk to us. Yes, Ria.
Well, for me, I think 40 minutes are best.
Pardon?
I think 40 minutes are best.
Okay.
I think you can keep it from 10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15. Okay. So teacher, if I think we can proceed from there.
Okay, yes, but at least it should be 20 is comfortable, from 15 okay to 30 minutes, so that you allow time for the test tube, for the mixture to be broken down, okay? So teacher Arthur, that I'll do for 20 minutes. Now, because I knew we would not have the time here, I went ahead and carried out the experiment myself, so I'll be sharing the results that I got. So after you have gotten, because this one is not going to manage to keep the 20 minutes, so definitely it will not give us very good results. But after the 20 or 30 minutes of incubation, you will now get out 1 test tube at a go, and then you test its contents to see whether they contain reducing sugars. In order to do this, your teachers taught you, you will need, of course, we usually get, I'll just demonstrate, but I said I don't expect this one to give me the right answers. I'll get 1 centimeter cubed of the test solution. I can even estimate it. And to this, I am supposed to add an equal amount of the reagent that tests for reducing sugars. That is Benedict's solution. I add the Benedict solution, an equal amount, and shake. Then I am expected to boil this and see if it is going to give me the color changes that I expect. As I said, I am testing a solution which has not yet been incubated for the appropriate time. So definitely the results I'm going to get if I test it will not be the correct ones. But I will share with you the ones I got when I tried it out early this morning. So when I incubated my setup, I actually kept it for 30 minutes because I had plenty of time. You can see the results I got. After boiling with Benedict's solution, in 2 of the test tubes, the solution remained blue. In the 3rd test tube, the solution went through a number of changes. It from blue to green to yellow, and it finally came out like this. Maybe before I even disclose which test tube did what can you tell about these color changes? especially these two test tubes which were on boiling with Benedict's solution, my solution remained blue. What deduction do we make from that? Teacher Arthur? You could help unpick. Hello?
Eva.
Yes. Are there any people willing to answer before I disclose which of my test tubes is which?
Yes,
what would the blue color indicate?
We have very many hands here. Let me start with the Edwin degree. Edwin, what do you have to say? Then let me look for, okay. Others, you're using pseudonyms and they can't just help. Okay, someone is Jonah. Jonah, can you unmute? Yes, Jonah? Okay. Then Rodney Edgar.
The two sugars absent.
Muno mulimu litoration sugars, muno temuli. Muno mulimu excess. The weather kind of
We can't hear very well. I think now let me just read the what we have in the chat room that we can be able to trace to follow up. Okay, now in the chat room, people are saying reducing sugars present. In the first test tube, reducing sugars are going to be present. The reducing sugars are absent. So it is interesting that we have two alternative responses. Some people are saying reducing sugars would be present. Other people are saying reducing sugars would be absent. Now, why is that? Huh? People are saying reducing sugars are absent. Others are saying blue indicates absence. Who shows that reduced sugars will be absent? So to say, if it is clear that in the chat room, people have alternative responses. Sorry, I admitted you. Can unmute yourself. Someone I was looking for to mute. Okay. So to say, if people are having alternative responses, maybe now we can investigate. Why do they think like that?
Could they share, or were they answering a different question? The question at hand is, for the test tubes where the solution remained blue, what does that indicate about the presence or absence of reducing sugars?
Okay, so they are saying that where we are seeing, because it is clear in these three test tubes, we are seeing brown, or someone can call it orange. We are seeing blue. We are also seeing blue. And the question was, what does the blue indicate? And what does the blue indicate? Okay, so blue indicates the absence. That is clear. So it means in test tube A, so in this test tube, so in the third, I don't know whether I'm following the order, but the middle test tube, we had a blue color. After we have intubated, Eva took you through the steps of intubating, then blah, blah. Then after that, we now had to add Benedict solution to see, do we have reducing sugars or we do not have reducing sugars? And in the middle test tube, where we are getting blue, it is clear to us that reducing sugars are absent. Then where we're getting orange, it is clear that reducing sugars are present. So that is how we can interpret this. Now, maybe if I can first pick it up from there. Now, remember, we have gone through the steps and eventually we are here. Now, we don't have any other procedures to carry out. This is what we are looking out for. All along, we had wanted to see which color changes are we going to get at the end of it all. And the interesting questions were coming through in the chat room. People were asking, do we rate the procedures in past tense? Which tense do we use? Now, how to answer that question, the procedures, you are reporting to us what you, in other words, remember, these procedures, they're in the implementation. So you're either reporting to us what you did, or you are reporting to us what you are going to do. Either way. So does the tense really matter? All I can say is that the tense shouldn't matter. The tense shouldn't matter. Whichever tense you use, we must see that these are procedures, just like that. So I hope that one is clear. The tense used here shouldn't matter. Any tense you use, as long as they are procedures. Then, now, how do you record your observations? Ooh, that question is first seen. How do you record your observations? Tell us what you have seen. Just tell us what you have seen. For example, we had 3 test tubes. You know what you added to test tube 1. You know what you added to test tube 2. You know what you added to test tube 3. Now, how do you record your observations? You just tell us, in test tube 1, I got a brown or orange color or solution. It doesn't matter. In test tube 2, I got a blue color. In test tube 3, I got a blue color. You have recorded your observations. So don't mind about the tense. Don't mind about, just record what have you seen. That is what you record. I hope that one is also somehow clear. Then someone is saying past tense in the observations. So is there no tense specific? Since we, okay, I thought you use past tense in your observations. If you think we use past tense in the observations, that is okay. Just write them the way you want. As long as, now remember, this is not English. We are not assessing you in your English. We are basically assessing, are you able to make procedures? Are you able to record observations as long as they are correct? Okay, so for you, if you think that past tense is the way to go, it's okay, go for past tense. If you think, I don't know which other tense you want to use, maybe future tense is the way to go, it's okay, go with that future tense. Either way, it is okay. Okay. Let us now maybe hear some questions. Yes, Jay Bato, you can unmute and ask. Someone using the account of Jay Bato, you can unmute and ask your question, or maybe supplement, you know. Joe Bato, are you there? Hmm? We can't hear anything. Okay, let us hear from Michael Blair.
Okay, like
Okay,
We
so
wanted to ask about like when you're recording your observations, there's this thing where
have lost you. Can you come up again? Okay, maybe you can chat your query. You can chat your query. Okay, can we have Michael Blair? Michael Blair. Okay. Mutiaba Samuel. Mutiaba.
Sure. My question is, can the tense to be used while writing the procedures and the deductions depend on the scenario that I was given?
All I can say, the tense does not matter. The tense does not matter.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay, someone using Galaxy Core. Someone using Galaxy. Okay, Jebato, is your network clear now? Okay, someone using the account administrator can unmute and talk to us, sir.
are you getting me now?
Very clear.
Okay, like what we wanted to ask about is the incubation period. Like now, let's say whenever we are doing exams, we have less time. If you're to take 30 minutes, it might be more of your time to record the observations and the analysis. So is it okay if you use like 10 to 15 minutes?
Okay, that's a very interesting question. Now, the incubation period, it shouldn't be too, the time shouldn't be too small, or again, it shouldn't be too big. So averagely, 15 to 20, I think is fair. 15 to 20 is fair. Okay. Can we have Kahuma Lamek? Kahuma Lamek?
Are there no questions in the chat? Maybe we check the chat.
Okay, now maybe you can check the chat. Yes, meanwhile, Kahuma, if you're able to connect, you can talk to us. Okay, now from what I'm seeing in the chat, it is an issue of what if I do this, what if I do that, what if I do this. Now the beauty with this new curriculum, we are not imposing rules on you. We are not imposing restrictions on you. For us, we are looking for competencies. And the people have different ways of exhibiting their competencies. For me, if I say I'm looking for procedures, I will not say I'm looking for procedures recorded in the right tense. I'm just looking for procedures. If someone is saying that for me, the best way to present my data is in a table format, to you, it is okay. You can present it in that table format. If for you are saying that, no, a table wouldn't be appropriate for me, it is okay. Whichever way you want to present your results, don't give yourself those restrictions that what if I do this? What if I do that? Either way, it is very okay. Okay, so I propose that we now go to the next thing because we're supposed to be concluding this item. So now, now that we have got those results, Now that we have got those results there, we wrote the procedures, we have written the observations. What is the next thing on our agenda? Now, the next thing to do is now to analyze our results and make appropriate recommendations. So if you're noting down, note down, please. The next thing is analyzing results and making appropriate recommendations. Now, we now have these results. We now have these results. What you tell us, what do they mean? And what are the recommendations have to do? Remember, don't forget our task, our scenario. We are to advise safe food industries. That is our task. Now, please, let the responses flow. Analyze these results, and after analyzing these results, give us appropriate recommendations. Who can tell us what do these results mean and how are you going to advise safe food industries? So what are we seeing here? Teacher Eva, maybe you can tell those ones who maybe can't see clearly. In the first test tube, you tell them what the kind of pH in each test tube, or what we added in a way, what we added.
Okay. This test tube is labeled acidic. So this is the one where we put the hydrochloric acid. So the enzyme was maintained in acidic conditions. This one is labeled alkaline. So this is where we put sodium hydroxide solution. And so the enzyme was maintained in alkaline conditions. And this one is labeled neutral. So this is where we added distilled water. So the enzyme was maintained in neutral conditions.
That is interesting. Now over to you, members. Remember, we are now on the last thing of our report, the very last thing. And what have we called it? We've said analysis of results and the recommendations. So I want someone to tell us, analyze for us these results and give us an appropriate recommendations. You can either type in the chat room or you can raise up your hand and mute yourself and you submit to us. Let me start with the person using Technopop 4. Someone using Technopop 4. Unmute, please.
Yes, to me, I think in the acidic test tube, which is labeled, the test tube labeled acidic, which was on which hydrochloric acid was added. I think there the pH was acidic, which was trying to denature the enzymes. Then in the alkalinic test tube, where sodium hydroxide was added, they also think the pH of the solution was again too much for the enzyme to carry out its activities. Then in the neutral test tube, I think there the enzyme activity was working very well because the pH was optimal. It was optimal for the enzymes to work very well. Thank you, sir.
That's interesting. Another person. Let us hear from Samanya. Samanya Felix. Can you unmute yourself?
Oh, actually, mine, I rose up my hand way before. I think you have just seen it, but I wanted to maybe I can add on someone who asked about the time for intubation, whether it can not consume the time for the exam. May I think when you intubate, I think you first read through the question very well, and if you see that maybe in your response you need to intubate, then that time when you are waiting for your whatever, your test tubes to reach a time of removing, you can read through the responses you've added in the other items, or maybe you can look at item 2 and start answering to save time. That's all.
That's interesting. Thank you so much. Actually, we had forgotten to talk about that. Now, when you are intubating, don't sit and watch. Be doing other things. You can now maybe be preparing your report. Then also you can be now working on item number 2 as you wait. As long as you don't, the time at least should be a bit 15 minutes and above as you do your other things. Okay, thank you, Samanya, for that input. Ryan,
Thank you. So I think here we are going to the conclusion and the recommendation. So my conclusion is enzyme Q works best in neutral conditions, and the recommendation is that safe industries should actually expose the cassava to neutral conditions that favor the activity of enzyme Q.
That is very interesting and brilliant. Thank you, Ryan. And let us hear from two more people. Okay. Yes, Parito.
For me, I think Chaifu Company Limited should expose the cassava on neutral pH because in neutral we see that the starch was broken down to the disaccharide, which will provide the sweetie snacks they produce.
That's very interesting. So, Teacher Eva, from what I'm hearing, I think we have done a good job. Learners are now able to give to analyze this data, these results, and they're actually giving very brilliant recommendations and linking the recommendations to the demands of the task. That is very, very interesting. So now, once we have that, then it means we are done with the item number 1. So you end by analyzing the results and then giving recommendations. But these recommendations should be linked to the task. And that is what people have been doing. Okay, so I think that's all with item number 1. Maybe we can see if we have some misconception in the chat room, we address them. Then after that, we try to go to the last item, then we call it a day. Someone is saying that what about the risk and mitigation? That is chemistry. That is chemistry. I'm not sure that it is actually chemistry, but for us in biology, we don't have them. In biology, we don't have them. Okay, so I think that is the only one. I think after Eva, we can proceed to the next thing, not so?
Yes, we can, although unfortunately, my specimen are not here. But let's talk about it. I only have one specimen for number 2.
Okay. Okay, so let me display the item. Then okay, so this is the item here. This is the item. Okay. So, what we have here, we're saying that many people grow some crops near their homes. However, due to ignorance, their children remove some of the plant parts, resulting into poor yields. Then you are saying you are provided with the specimens A, B, C, and D, which are the parts found with the children. So you are provided with this. You have the morning glory flower, you have the maize leaf, you have the cabbage leaf, then you have the hibiscus flower. So that is our task. Or remember we're saying we call these tasks the problems that we have to deal with. Now, what is expected of us? After interpreting this, you get to understand the problem in the context. So it is clear here that one, crops near home. So there are crops there. Then they are saying children are playing, but as they play, they keep on removing parts from these plants. Of course, you also normally play at home. You go in someone who's maybe maize garden, you start removing the leaves anyhow. Now the question is, if that one happens to a learner whom we have taught biology, are you able to appreciate the effects that you're going to put or to cause onto this plant here? So that's now the demand, this task here. And what is the task? They are saying using external observable features, how are the children's actions likely to affect the plant growth and species survival? Now, this is the task that we have to respond to by looking at the specimens. Which specimens? I'm sure some of you are able to mobilize, the teachers were able to mobilize you, and you have those specimens with you. Now, they're saying we should only use external observable features. How are the children's actions likely to affect the plant growth and the species survival? Now, takes us now back to what kind of questions should run into our mind and how are we going to respond to them? And we have one of the guiding questions here. Why do you think flowers are important for a plant life cycle? What might happen if they remove them? You see? Remember, they're saying that these parts we are seeing here were removed. And then they're now asking, what are the consequences, those actions? So it means whichever part that was removed, you ask yourself, why is it important to a flower? And what happens if I remove it? So that is the approach here. Now, over to you. What is this one here? Why do you think flowers are important for plants' life cycle? And what might happen if they are removed? Anyone there? Now, maybe Teacher Eva.
Yes, Teacher Alpha.
I wanted to excuse myself and hand over to you to complete the last part, this item here.
Okay.
So I think you'll now be able to share those questions, then you guide them through. But I would wish now to end here because I have engagements that I have other equally urgent engagements that I have to be involving in. So I want to officially thank the participants who have been able to come to order the call to this important launch of the digital platform. We wish to continue having such online engagements so that we can see how we can bridge learning gap. I'm seated here where I am right now from the school. I've seen people sitting, I've seen Kumi girls attending. I've seen people from Wa. I've been able to talk to people from Nabisunsa. This online here. And at the campus of my school. So now it is possible and it is very easy to bridge the learning gap, that irrespective of where we are, we can always come together via such engagements. We come together, we interact. You get a chance to interact with me, get a chance to interact with teacher Eva, and we have now been able even to teach together with teacher Eva, yet we are not in the same location. We might actually be even about 50 or 20 kilometers apart, but this has been possible because of online. So we're trying to see how we can embrace this technology to see how we can bridge the learning gap, in that from Kampala and be able to talk to a learner in Karamoja, and that such kind of engagement. So I'm very happy to be part of this, and also for teacher Eva accepting to co-teach to help me out. So I remain a teacher Arthur Gonza, biology from St. Mary's College, Chisubi. So I beg to stop from here. So I'm handing over officially to teacher Eva, who will take you up to 1. Then the session is expected to end at 1. So thank you so much for being good participants. Thank you. So teacher Eva, over to you, and I'm off.
Arthur, I think we have about 10 minutes to go. So we are going to use them as in the best way that you can. Teacher Arthur, they thanked you a lot. I see it in the chat. Okay, let us finish with what we had started. We were looking at the task ahead of us. They told us, look at the observable features. Look at the observable features of this 4 specimen that you have. That is, you were given a cabbage leaf, a morning glory flower, hibiscus flower, and the maize leaf. So 2 are leaves and 2 are flowers. And they're saying, using their observable features, how can the actions of the children affect the plant growth if those things were removed, the flowers and the leaves? And the question we were looking at, which I see many of us have attempted to answer in the chat, was, to answer that question, they are actually asking us, why are flowers important for the survival of a plant? So that is the question that we are asking. Maybe I would have people answering it by show of hands. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Who is sharing this? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kaziva. Yes, can I have people telling us, why are flowers important to a plant? That is what the plant will miss when the flowers are removed. Yes, I'll check in the chat. Some answers had gone there. Now it is, oh yes, the last one I just saw was flowers help in fertilization. So the plant will miss fertilization. Okay, fertilization is just a part of a bigger process. Let me hear from those who can talk. Mutiava Sam, please unmute.
Okay, thank you, teacher. Madam, according to me, the flower being a reproductive part of a plant will not, if destroyed, that's say, if removed from the plant, will not be able to carry out pollination and fertilization. Hence, it will not produce seeds, which would help in the extension of the plant species. So the plant is most likely to get extinct.
Okay, you have put so many answers in one, but that is a beautiful answer. Anyone with a slightly different view, why a flower is important? So whenever these children remove those flowers, the plants are going to miss using them for that thing which flowers are for. I see Ryan, you posted here, flowers are the reproductive parts of the plants and are responsible for multiplication of the plant species. So when removed, plants are unable to reproduce. Very good. Flowers help in photosynthesis. This is technospark and fertilization. Okay, flowers so much in photosynthesis. So yes, Arago Stephen, you are telling us flowers are for pollination. Flowers are for pollination. And what? And if they are removed by pollinator, pollination will not take place when flowers are removed by pollinators, so pollen grain will not be able to be transferred. Yes, we all seem to be on the right track. The question which we have been asked is, using external observable features, how are the children's actions likely to affect the plant growth and species survival? In terms of the plant growing, I think we are clear. All of us have said the plant will grow, but will not carry out reproduction. And when it does not carry out reproduction, very clear, someone is saying it will not bear fruits. We are seeing that in the chat, and therefore it will not bear. It will also not bear seeds. So that is good. So one of our answers would be that, but written out very well and clearly. Okay. Then another thing, someone talked about survival of the species. Very important because the question is talking about plant growth and the survival of the species. So can someone coin that? We have it as another point. If there are no flowers, does it mean the whole species is gone? What does it mean? Let us share on that before we go to the leaves. There are some hands which have stayed up and I don't know. Superito. Okay, Superito is not saying anything. I'll read what is in the chat. Dispersal is affected since fruits are not formed. Yes, please.
Hello.
Yes, Ninja. Is it Ninja talking? Please go ahead.
Okay, like I also wanted to contribute about that part of the importance of the flower. We're also talking about the extinction. We all know if flowers, like if the tree does not carry out like reproduction, that's important in like in our communities because we use them in decoration, so we shall lose all those useful importances of these flowers.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Hello?
Yes, please. Please speak.
Contribute to that part of the
The network seems to be bad. Okay, we can't hear that very well. But I want to draw your attention to this question. They want to know, using external observable features, how the children's actions affect plant growth and species survival, not affecting our lives. Let's say how our places are decorated, not affecting other things, but the survival of the species of that plant and also the growth of that plant. That is where our answers should be based. And luckily, most of you have put it around the process of reproduction. So someone, Ryan, you're saying you've been told by your teacher on several occasions that it's not a must to use, oh, sorry, Ryan, you're going on another thing. Then I'll check just one more. Oh, sorry. Flowers have, okay. The species will decrease in number since plants, I think you mean since flowers are for reproduction. Yes, it will decrease in numbers and actually can eventually get extinct if the children keep up their business a lot and this plant does not exist elsewhere, the plant can get extinct. So we have answered that one. Let's move quickly. We have about 3 minutes to go. The next question we're looking at, Mr. Kaziba, the question has gone. How could removing the leaves affect the plant's survival? Because we have specimens which are flowers. This is the hibiscus flowers, and this is the morning glory flower. We have said when children pluck off all the leaves, the plant will not be able to carry out reproduction. And when it does not carry out reproduction, it will not produce fruits. And when it does not produce fruits, there'll be no seeds for propagation. There'll be no seeds to germinate into new plants. So eventually we shall have fewer and fewer of those plants, and eventually they can get extinct if the children are all over the country or wherever the plant is located. But now we are moving on to the leaves. If the leaves are removed from the plant, how would that affect the growth of the plant and the survival of the species? Again, to answer that, that is simply, we can translate that question into what is the importance of leaves to the plant? Okay, again, I'm seeing some answers in the chat, but maybe I like hearing voices. Nincha Alex, could you unmute and share with us? When leaves are removed, how would the plant growth and survival of the species be affected? Okay, Nincha cannot unmute. Capta, can we hear from you, Capta? Please unmute. Capta is having issues. Musinguzi Isaac. Oh, okay, I'll read the chat. Someone is saying, Caesar, you're saying leaves have chlorophyll that traps sunlight energy, hence aiding photosynthesis. Yes, that is the function. So the question is, what is the function? When we reflect on that one in our minds, it helps us now to answer the question that how will plant growth and species survival be affected when the leaves are removed? So can we mention that you see the leaves have this, because they said using observable features. The leaves have this, which is used for whatever, and so species survival is affected. Okay, Mary, I think that's Mary, you're saying leaves have stomata, which help the plant to breathe, therefore the plant will have insufficient respiration. Good answer, Mary, but I don't know if you can see the stomata in the leaf you're holding. Stomata can only be seen when we observe these plants under the microscope. So that is not an observable external feature. Can we pick something we can observe on the leaves and talk about it? This is Princess, you're saying the plants have store food, okay? Yes, the cabbage leaf, what you see is that is thick. It is thick, that's the observable picture. I don't remember what specimen it is, but you will mention that specimen C is thick. That is the observable feature. So it stores food. When it is removed from the plant will not have stored food and so will not survive for long. That is one way we could bring it. Thank you for that. Someone is saying the leaf is green, which has chlorophyll, which enables it to trap sunlight for photosynthesis. Beautiful answer. Stretch it to, therefore, when the leaves are removed, how will this affect the growth of the plant? The plant maybe will not grow well because it will not have food. How will it affect species survival? Those are very important aspects to talk about. Then someone is saying, is there a need to explain using plant cells? No, you cannot observe plant cells on your specimen as we see it. So because you cannot observe the plant cells, you are not going to talk about it. Actually, for the leaf, for the cabbage leaf, the main things you will talk about is that it is thick or swollen, so it stores some food and water for the plant. And therefore, when the cabbage leaves are removed, the plant will have less water and food stored, and so maybe will not survive well. Then the maize leaf is basically green, even cabbage is green, so meaning they can carry out photosynthesis, which makes food for the plant. So when they are removed, the plant will not be able to carry out photosynthesis. Yes, the answers are still coming in, although I have noted our time is far spent. Mr. Kaziba, I don't know if you're there. I'm worried about our time. We are supposed to stop at 1. The remaining questions, I think you can discuss them with your teachers, but we have talked about how best you should approach them. There's something interesting I am seeing. The maize leaf has parallel venation. Of what importance is the parallel venation to the plant? Please relate the feature you're seeing, that I see the leaf is green, meaning it contains chlorophyll so it can carry out photosynthesis. And therefore, when the leaves are removed, the plant will not make food and therefore will not have energy to drive its activities. Okay, I would like to stop here. Mr. Kaziba, I don't know if you are there.
Yes, Teacher Eva, thank you so much for the wonderful session you have been able to deliver to the country. I think we went off a bit because thank you so much for. Okay, I think my background is not going to be okay. The first leaders are right where we are now. But we want to thank you so much, Teacher Eva, for the wonderful session you have been able to offer to the students. Dear students, thank you so much for joining. The schools that have been able to join, thank you so much. I'm going to end here, but students, we are going to send a circular to you shortly today. So we are going to end here, and I wish you a good day. Have a good day.
I now invite maybe the secretary for Mama's office to come and lead us in the prayer.
Let's humble ourselves and pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for today. It is a blessed day. Even when the enemy rises up like a flood, you indeed raise a standard, and we've seen you raise a standard. You've preserved life, and our friends are now out of danger. Lord, we want to say thank you. We thank you for the handover of the 9 technical institutes for expansion. We thank you, Lord, for the launch of the ministry's digital agenda. And Father, we just want to bless you for this milestone. We ask, Lord, that you will oversee the expansion, the building of these technical institutes, because we know that unless you build a house, we labor in vain. We know that unless you watch over the city, the watchmen stay awake in vain. And so, Lord, we dedicate the entire process to you. Just like you enabled Nehemiah in the days of Nehemiah to rebuild the wall around Jerusalem in just 52 days, we ask that we shall again gather to see the complete expansion and rebuilding of these technical institutes. So, Lord, we pray even for the digital agenda, that it will be a blessing to our children in the different schools. We ask that you'll keep them safe from any wrong information on the internet, and that, Lord, this will be a tool to equip them and not to destroy them in any way. Now we ask that you'll be pleased to be part of this event. Guide each and every detail of it, and bless everything that we shall do. We thank you because we ask all this in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Thank you so much, Undersecretary. Ladies and gentlemen, you may please have your seats. Our guest of honor, Mama Janet Museveni,
Going to end here.
the First Lady and Minister of Education and Sports. Honorable Cabinet members present, honorable members of Parliament present, permanent secretaries, the head of the Islamic Development Bank Regional Hub, the head of the UNICEF Country Office.
Next week. Lessons are going to start next week.
Other development partner representatives,
so that we shall start
local government
lessons from
leaders,
Monday up to Friday.
officials from
Or
other
next week
ministries,
we shall have
departments and
lessons
agencies,
up to next month.
all staff of the
Yes, so
Ministry of
prepare.
Education and
We
Sports,
shall start.
the press,